The ballroom of the Marcelli estate glowed like liquid gold, the light from crystal chandeliers refracting against polished marble, creating a kaleidoscope of warmth and opulence. The air was thick with the subtle perfume of wealth and danger, and every guest moved as though they were actors in a play of power and seduction. Selene Moreau entered like a storm wrapped in silk, every step deliberate, every gaze measured. At 25, Selene's beauty was the kind that silenced rooms, not by innocence but by command. Her dark hair fell in waves that caught the light, framing a face both exquisite and dangerous. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept over the crowd with precision. She wasn't just a woman in her world, she was a force. The whisper of her name among the elite came with equal parts awe and fear. Selene moved with poise, shoulders straight, heels clicking softly against the marble floor. She had no intention of mingling endlessly with the self-important and sycophantic. She was here on business, on reconnaissance, and perhaps on instinct. Some part of her knew that the night would bring a complication she wasn't ready for. It arrived sooner than she expected. "Excuse me, you're in my way," a voice said, low and velvety, yet carrying a tension that made the air between them taut. Selene turned sharply. Standing before her was Adrian Blackwood. His presence was like a shadow cast over the golden glow of the room, tall, broad, with an intensity that demanded attention. His dark hair fell slightly into his eyes, and his jaw was set in a way that suggested both irritation and amusement. Adrian's gaze, sharp and assessing, landed on her with a curious mixture of recognition and challenge. "Blackwood," she said, her voice smooth, controlled, yet edged with warning. "I wasn't aware you attended these gatherings of superficial grandeur." He smirked, one eyebrow raised. "And I wasn't aware that you spent your nights measuring everyone's worth in disdain." He leaned casually against the railing of the staircase, the gesture both careless and deliberate, as if daring her to provoke him. Selena's lips curved into a half-smile, dangerous yet controlled. "I do not provoke without purpose." "Good," he said, his dark eyes glinting. "Because I do not suffer fools lightly. Except, apparently, when they're beautiful and infuriating in equal measure." Selene bristled. Absolutely no one spoke to her with that combination of insolence and admiration. She narrowed her eyes, stepping closer, closing the gap between them. "Infuriating is hardly a compliment. It's an observation," Adrian replied smoothly, his tone teasing, almost playful. And yet, beneath that veneer, there was a thread of something else, a dangerous obsession, barely contained. "And I observe a lot." Selene's fingers tightened around her clutch. The room around them faded, the laughter, the clinking of glasses. The music hall became background noise to the storm brewing between them. Her pulse quickened, a sensation she rarely allowed herself. It was not fear, it was curiosity, and something darker, more primal. "Do I intrigue you?" she asked, voice soft, almost a challenge. Adrian's smirk widened, and he took a step closer, the scent of his cologne mingling with the air, like a promise of danger. "I would be lying if I said no." Selena's eyes flashed. "Good, then you understand how this ends, if you continue." "Enlighten me," he said, his tone smooth, deceptively casual. But every word carried weight, as if a single misstep could ignite a wildfire. "This ends," she said, her voice a low hiss, "with you walking away before you get burned. Or worse, before you realize you've already lost." Adrian's laugh was low, almost a growl, and yet it held a warmth reserved for very few. "Lost?" He tilted his head, studying her. "I highly doubt I could lose to someone like you. Perhaps I'd rather win. In my own way." Selene felt a shiver of something she refused to name. The room suddenly seemed smaller, more intimate, every movement magnified. Her mind, sharp and precise as a scalpel, calculated, analyzed, and yet there was a part of her that thrilled at the audacity of this man, who was as infuriating as he was mesmerizing. "You're reckless," she said, her tone carrying authority, "and I do not suffer recklessness." "Good thing I'm not asking for your permission," he countered, a mischievous glint lighting his eyes. "I simply enjoy watching you try to contain it." Selena's hands twitched at her sides. She hated how much his presence unsettled her. She hated how his words lingered longer than they should, echoing in her thoughts long after he walked away. And yet, she couldn't deny the pull. "You think you can waltz into my life and, what, distract me?" she asked, voice trembling slightly despite her effort to stay composed. Adrian leaned in, just close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from him, close enough that the sharp scent of him filled her senses. "I think," he said, voice low, deliberate, "that I can make you want to stop fighting me. And when that happens, I'll be patient. Or perhaps not." Selena's pulse hammered in her ears. She wanted to step back. She wanted to remind herself of the rules, of the walls she had carefully constructed. But something in his gaze, a dangerous, relentless fascination, made her freeze. "You're maddening," she whispered, a small crack in her armor. "And you? Irresistible?" he countered immediately, like he'd been waiting for her to say it, savoring the admission that didn't fully escape her lips. The music swelled, a slow, intoxicating waltz, and Adrian extended a hand, a dark challenge hidden beneath the elegance of the gesture. "Dance with me." Selena's eyes narrowed, weighing every possible consequence. He was arrogant, infuriating, and completely, dangerously beautiful, and yet, the idea of surrendering, even for a moment, tugged at her in ways she hadn't expected. "Fine," she said finally, placing her hand in his. "But one misstep, and this ends." Adrian's grin was triumphant, just a hint of boyish arrogance flashing beneath the carefully cultivated grumpiness noted. "I'll be careful." For now, as they moved into the dance, the crowd around them blurred. Every glance, every brush of his fingers against hers, every small, intimate gesture became a battlefield and a seduction all at once. They were warriors in a game neither had agreed to play, yet both were already trapped. "Do you always have this effect on people?" Selene asked, voice low, as he guided her with expert precision. "Not usually," Adrian admitted, though the smirk never left his lips. "But you're different, and I've always had a taste for the impossible." Selena's heart skipped a beat. She refused to acknowledge. The impossible was dangerous, but temptation, it seemed, was irresistible. And Adrian Blackwood was temptation incarnate, grumpy, cunning, slightly immature, and yet utterly compelling. The dance ended too soon. Selene stepped back, putting the pretense of professionalism between them, but Adrian caught her wrist, his grip firm, possessive. "You're not leaving yet," he said, his eyes darkening, a shadow of something intense and obsessive passing through them. "I don't do well with goodbyes." Selene swallowed, a small shiver racing down her spine. She hated that she noticed how his hand felt warm around hers. She hated that the thought of leaving made her stomach twist. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "And yet, here I am," he said, voice low, almost a growl, "because I want to be." It was infuriating. It was intoxicating. And it was only the beginning. In the world of wealth, power, and danger, Selene had always controlled the battlefield. But tonight, Adrian Blackwood had arrived, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she could predict the outcome. He was her enemy. And yet, something in her, the fire she had always trusted to protect her, was already drawn to his storm. The storm that neither of them would be able to resist.